In this video, I'm going to break down the organic flywheel that made one of our clients $1 million, $4,399.24 in the month of May. And I'm going to show you everything, going from the different content funnels that we've ran and who was responsible for them, how the distribution and cross-pollination was managed, as well as the feedback loop and our plan to hit $2 million a month by the end of the year. Okay, so if you're wondering who I am, my name is Jeremy Moser. I'm the co-founder of Social Profit Media. We're an Instagram marketing and conversion firm. We have done over $100 million in info product sales for our clients since 2020. In that time, we've also gained well over 5 million followers, scaled 12 offers to 500K and 5 offers to $1 million a month. My intentions of making this video, so we're very clear from the get-go, is I want to share with you lessons from building $1 million a month brands on Instagram, what is and isn't working in the landscape of info and content, and busting myths and misinformation around content in Instagram specifically from someone who literally lives and breathes in the arena. And lastly, very selfish plug, I want to get you intrigued into working with us. Okay, now with that being said, let's dive right into it. So first things first, just want to give you some quick proof. Obviously here you can see there's the cash collected. So this is from the spreadsheet of the sales agency that we work with. Okay. And then here we have the message from the sales manager. He basically says, good morning. We wrapped up the team on a high note, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Showing you proof that we've done over $1 million. To get one thing straight really quick. Okay. In these videos, I'm going to go into as much detail as possible, but I will leave key information out. That is the client's name, the exact niche it was in, the exact offer name or whatever it is, because I want to avoid people just copying, and I want to avoid the client being outed like that too, because I'm not sure everyone wants to know how much money they're exactly making. Okay, so just a quick about the client. So he's basically in the investment and passive income niche. Obviously there's different asset classes. It's one of those odd side hustles, just like people have laundromats or one of those quirky little niches. Okay, the price point that he has is basically 15K, and if they downsell, then it's basically 9,800. If they take a lower package, there's a 6K coaching offer. This one comes with a done for you component, and then there's a 1K course. But honestly, I think we're pretty much going to scrap that one out. Now, with that said, the client avatar that we're trying to attract are basically corporate or W-2 employees who are looking to supplement their income or are just looking to invest their money and get some passive residuals so they can relax and kind of get their lives better for themselves and their families. This might be a bit of a side note, but basically a lot of people are targeting corporate W-2 employees right now, whereas 2-3 years ago, everyone and their moms was chasing the 19-year-old who was trying to be a dropout. So definitely that's one of the keys I want to highlight early on. Who we were targeting was absolutely smacking, okay? Because they have more money than the 19-year-old, We didn't rely on financing for every single deal. As a whole, that niche allowed us to also charge a bit of a bigger price, which from a pure mathematics perspective made scaling to $1 million much easier. Now, I want to go into the content funnels, okay? There's 3 different content funnels I'm going to go walk through. First things first, the most lucrative channel, to be quite frank, is the Instagram funnel, which is managed by myself and my business partner. And so just to kind of run you through, the Instagram funnel brought in just around $400,000, at an average ROAS of roughly a 37x. Now, the funnel is super simple, okay, to be quite frank. So we have Instagram content, right? That goes, obviously, drives profile visits. From there, it also generates Instagram DMs. We have a DM setter that goes through those DMs and kind of make sure they're financially qualified, they understand the offer, they know who the creator, aka our client, is, and they kind of like him. We'll use a lot of materials there to nurture them. From there, we push them into a sales call and they get converted. And on top of that, to boost this really up, which is kind of the secret sauce of what we do, if somebody basically likes the content so much, it kind of ends up going viral, right? We use Instagram shoutouts, which is basically theme page marketing, to drive exponentially more profile visits to the client, which helps us increase the number of DMs we get, the number of followers we get, and also the number of eyeballs that land on the content, which once again leads to more DMs. Okay, so this is basically the basic funnel that we have there. Second of all, there was YouTube. Okay, YouTube's managed by Presley Milton and his business partner Cam. They run basically theclipcurator.com, which is basically a YouTube agency. So their entire funnel was they created YouTube content. I think the frequency here was roughly 1 video a week. Our frequency was one post a day. From there, they go to a Typeform application where they get on the sales call, or the second funnel that they're split testing right now is run to a webinar, direct to checkout, then upsell in the back end. Okay. Again, this is brought in actually on our record month. This brought in like between 250 and 300K. It was a very, very lucrative funnel. To highlight out, there was a YouTube collaboration that was being done here. So I guess like I could technically like add that in, that a collaboration post with a very big, so basically like they had a very big collaboration with a big YouTube channel, which drove a significant amount of like new leads and like ultimately also like revenue, which has been pretty cool to see. And lastly, we have Twitter, one of the more seasoned accounts that basically this client has worked with. This channel was managed by Marcus Ruiz. He runs the Birdhouse, good friend of mine as well. And their funnel looked very similar to Instagram. I think they post like 42 times a week or something crazy like that. But very simple, X content to DMs or to a website link that was a link in bio. From there, it goes to a DM setting process, sales call money. Important to note here, a lot of the X stuff was fairly outbound heavy because that's how the platform works. And so there's obviously the only constraint in like really scaling higher was getting a good amount of like X sets. But that platform here has been around for that particular client for roughly like a year. And they're doing pretty damn well. I think this platform brought in roughly like 200K. So you can pretty much see like we have like 400K here, 300K here, roughly 200K here. The remaining sales that came in from this funnel here, which is basically podcast, YouTube collaborations, or like newsletter mentions that go to the website, they book a call, and then they convert. Okay, so those are really the 4 funnels. I don't really count this as a funnel because it's just more like random traffic, but those 3 funnels generated like more than 90%. And the only reason, honestly, we couldn't scale further is because we had too much traffic from that collaboration here. And so we couldn't really book all of the Instagram leads. Right now, we're booking about like 20 calls a day, which, that should really double that booking call from Instagram alone. Now, to show you the distribution and kind of dive deeper into that, now, pretty much the way we worked on the Instagram side is super simple. So on the Instagram side with content, we basically post reels. They're really much like top of the funnel and like bottom of the funnel stuff because they obviously drive a bunch of views, drive a bunch of followers, but they also, through like strategic CTAs, drive a lot of leads, right? Then we repost like tweets, which are just like, screenshots of a tweet basically. They're more like tactical and personal. So they're like middle of the funnel to really nurture the audience. Then we have like carousels and threads. They're really like middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel. And then we have like stories, which like Instagram stories, they're great to like drive leads and really connect with people. Okay. And then on Twitter, it's basically like threads and tweets. I think occasionally they throw in a video repurpose, but that's pretty much it. Now, what's happening here, which I think why this ecosystem works so nicely, is a lot of the best performing content from both platforms becomes the foundation for the YouTube content. Because obviously it's a simple marketing principle of like we on the X and Instagram side test a bunch of angles, and then the YouTube team's able to see what's working, what's not working, and they're then able to go and say, oh, this is the YouTube content that could actually work because the angle's already been validated, which is awesome because like now their videos are like a more elaborate or like more expanded version of like our content, which means people will actually care about it and we can leverage that piece later on. So pretty much they'll work together because we see what's working on X and we can leverage that for potential ideas or like ideations in our content. Vice versa, the same. X can take our ideas and put them onto Twitter. And then obviously the YouTube team can see what's performing here and what's converting and basically just double down on that, which I think is awesome because now we're making educated guesses versus suggestions. And now this is really where it gets interesting, right? Because previously I'd never seen this on like a lot of brands where we had like so many like, I guess, content agencies for every platform. And so it's been really interesting to see sort of the cross-pollination of this whole thing, which honestly was my biggest like kink that I really enjoyed. Which, yes, I enjoy that being an info marketer, so sue me. Basically, what we've seen is that, like, this is the Instagram funnel. That's more what we focus on, bread and butter, so I really want to dive into this. We obviously, like, use maybe some Twitter stuff for, like, ideations, but the YouTube videos have been massive help, okay? So we would use Instagram content, obviously get IG profile visits and get DMs, right? What we would do, step one, is we would give away, like, freebies inside of the content. We would be like, hey, if you want a full free course on how to get started with this business model, then, basically drop me a keyword. They would go into the DMs and they would be sent to a UTM tracked YouTube video, right? So now the amazing thing for us is that we still have the person in the DM so we can follow up and nurture them and basically like push them to a video, push them to book a call. But in the back end, they're probably watching, like either following the channel and booking from there, or they're like watching a 1 hour free course and like getting really nurtured, really familiar with their personal brand, really familiar with, you know, the process and the business model, which means the likelihood of them actually buying is like significantly higher, which like I personally really resonated with. The same thing happens in the DM setting process. So part of what we do is we qualify these people quite extremely. So what we do is we basically ask, hey, how familiar are you with, like, you know, let's say the offer was Airbnb, right? Hypothetically, we say like, hey, how familiar are you with the Airbnb business? And we actually like kind of evaluate them. If they're like, oh yeah, like, you know, kind of familiar with what it is, be like, cool, well look, like, you know, unless you really understand it, I don't think this makes sense, let me send you a video, boom. And we kind of, if they're not like, oh yeah, I've looked at Airbnbs in this area, but I realized it might not be good, you know, we see they understand it and have given it a thought, we actually kind of push them to like do more information. Because the way I kind of look at this, and something I've learned from one of my mentors, is, you know, someone's willingness to buy depends on how much information they have, right? If they don't have enough information that shows them why this is a great idea to do, they're less interested. So we kind of gauge here, how interested are they? And then based on that, we use adequate like YouTube videos, you know, or YouTube transcripts to really nurture them. Okay. And then obviously same thing. Once someone books a sales call, we have an entire page with like embedded YouTube videos, embedded testimonials, and like all of that stuff to really nurture the fuck out of these leads. And this has been honestly awesome, because on Instagram alone, we had gotten a 75 to 80% show up rate, which is phenomenal, right? And I think a near 25% close rate. Now, I want to be very clear on this. This is something I recently learned. You might look at a 25% close rate or a 23% close rate, I'm not fully sure to be honest, and think, well, that's not amazing, right? Why are you so excited about this? Well, the excitement about it was because on average for every deal that we closed, we had collected like over $10,000. So just to kind of run you the numerics on that, if we basically run, okay, cool, we book 100 sales calls, right? We off of those 75 show up, and then we close 25%, you know, give or take, that's going to give us like, let's say 18 sales, right? That is literally like 180K that we collected in cash, which means for every call that we book 1.8K, you know, like cash collected, which means if we book, you know, if we manage to maintain the current booking rate at like 20 plus calls a day, we'll literally be able to cash collect $1 million off of 600 calls, which is like 2.5 times less calls than what traditional like Facebook ads funnels produce, which is why I love this content ecosystem so much. Okay, like I hope this kind of makes sense, and like I'm geeking out here on the numbers, but this is why like these values, these magnets are so valuable, because what happens is, and we're gonna get into the feedback loop with this, we strategically make videos, right? So for example, obviously we'd have content ideas, we sync on a weekly call with all the marketing partners, we go through the content, you know, they all drive sales calls, and then we get call feedback. So what we would get from the call feedback is we would figure out what's actually holding leads back from buying, right? Because traditionally everyone goes, oh, the leads are pretty shit, or oh, like XYZ is not really good. And so the cool part is we sit here and we look, okay, what is the issue, right? And instead of marketing and sales pointing at each other and be like, you suck, no, you suck, like get out of here, what we do is we actually look at, okay, cool, what's the issue that we're noticing? Cool. Is it the nurture level? Is it financially disqualified? Is it technical objection? Whatever it is, right? If it is, let's say, for example, on one of the deals, it was actually something other. It was basically the fact that Trump had just made the announcement that, you know, basically the tariffs are hampered, and a lot of people were like unsure. So they're like, I think I'm going to hold off because I want to see how this pans out. Well, what we did immediately is we had the client record a video how economic disasters affect XYZ business. And we basically made a post and Instagram story series around how this tariff stuff is going to adapt it. Now, immediately the amount of times that objection came about went down by like 60-70%, because quite simply, we obviously had addressed it. And so we overcame it. And so again, whenever we get feedback that's qualitative, not just, the leads were bad, but like we actually get qualitative feedback from the sales team, and we kind of get them to open up and kind of tell us what is tactically going on in those calls, we can really see what's going on. And so if the nurture level is really low, we actually then turn around, you know, go back to our ecosystem, we hammered this part here to fix the problem, right? Because we obviously want to make sure leads are super nurtured when they enter our call. Whereas if it's like a financially disqualified, same stuff. If it's a technical question, we just use to come up with content ideas. Okay, so again, to kind of summarize this whole like ecosystem that I've now been yapping about, it's pretty much like we use, two text or like video platforms like Instagram and X to kind of validate stuff. And then we use YouTube to really build a nurture platform. And obviously long term, as this audience here grows, like as like the way you kind of got to think about it is like it's all compounding, right? Because like if we're looking at it from a perspective of like if IG, right, goes from here, which might be like 100K right now, right? And that goes up to like 300K, it'll trickle down into like YouTube, right? Same with like X. X will trickle down into YouTube too. And YouTube will actually trickle down into X, and also YouTube, we push people into IG. And so now what happens between these three platforms is that every single platform feeds each other. Not only do we nurture and we work together, but actually the platforms feed each other, which is awesome because now everything is growing. So if one thing is growing, everyone's growing, which like to me is one of my favorite things, because like now we actually can pretty much for free acquire leads, which is like one of the best things ever, right? Because you don't have high rising ad costs. We don't really give a fuck about that. We're not affected by the rising ad costs ever, which is pretty damn awesome. So lastly, I kind of want to go through the plan that we have now to scale to 2 mil a month, okay? So pretty much like we want to scale the spend on Instagram. Now, you just said that, Jeremy, there's no scale spend on Instagram, which yes, true. But pretty much we use shoutouts. It's like a different form of ad spend, and it's fairly scalable and fairly cheap. Obviously, right now we have more capacity, so we have been able already to increase the bookings by about 20 to 30%, which has been like quite remarkable, to be honest with you. The second thing that we can do is we're basically going to increase leads by like 1.5 to 2x. So from May, we're sitting at about 3,800 leads. We want to get that to like 7,000, if not 10,000 leads, if possible. At that point, we will be able to pump out like 1 million, 2 million a month off of Instagram alone. And then lastly, we want to basically have a collected dollar per booked call. We currently hold that at like 1.8K. I want to get that to like slightly down, but increase the call booking volume, because at that point, if we can have 700 calls a month, we will comfortably hit like $1 million of Instagram alone. Right now, what we did is we also eliminated the website sales process. So what you've seen here, we eliminated this thing like completely. The issue with it, to be quite frank with you, was that there was just no financial qualification. So like, although the channel brought in a decent amount of sales, it would basically have a high no-show rate and a low close rate, because the leads here, they had minimal information. Hence, the interest level was like fairly low. So we've done that. One thing that we're doing is we're increasing a 25K and the 50K offer, because that allows us to basically, with minimal spend, get like a massive ROAS, and obviously makes less units sold needed. And that will be really interesting, because it obviously increases our AOV, but also like the average order value, but also it increases how much money we make per booked call, which will be pretty damn lucrative. Lastly, on the Twitter side, I think we're working right now heavily on the setter process. So basically, like, we should be able to contribute 300-400K at scale from Instagram, like from Twitter, with no issues at all. So for that, we just need to spend more money on retweets, which they're, kind of using to grow the audience and improve the setting up process and kind of grow that team. And then lastly, the agency, so Marcus's team, they're going to actually add LinkedIn in, which are already ramping up. Within the next 90 days, should be booking around an extra 10 calls a day, which like that should result in like roughly 100-200K a month. And then obviously we will do, as far as I'm aware, more YouTube collaborations. So the YouTube collaborations, the way they work is like you do a video of another channel on your thing, right? And then basically you make a ton of people see your stuff. And because those YouTube channel collabs are not very, explored, that is very high conversions. And so that will definitely help, us at increasingly revenue as well. And then lastly, we had sales team converted like 18% currently. We want to push that, to the 25% mark that I mentioned, and make sure that we don't drop the AOV. Again, this is just, I know this is super technical and I probably just went on yapping about this, but this is really like a breakdown of like my favorite funnel, which is like organic funnels. That's what I live and breathe. And again, I want to make sure we have been responsible for pretty much like half of the revenue. And obviously like then Presley and his agency and Marcus and his agency, they contributed serious revenue as well. And again, having that trifecta was been super helpful, because, It's just been awesome kind of just riff-raffing off of it and not having some like random Facebook marketers spam like 2,000 leads who are all financially disqualified. With that being said, I hope this was of value to you. If you're getting some value out of this, please like, subscribe, share this with a friend who is living in poverty, aka can't crack, multi 6 figures a month, and see them what's possible with organic. Okay. If you want to learn more, feel free to follow me on Instagram. I'm gonna link this in the bio. And then from here on out, the plan's super simple. Obviously, I want to grow my brand. Done it for clients multiple times. We'll make a bunch of videos on that. And I just want to, kind of get some more visibility on showing you guys what we've done. Because honestly, we've worked with some of the biggest creators in the space and, done some pretty damn cool stuff. And so, yeah, pretty much give me a like, give me subscribes. Tell me what sucks and what you want to see next. I'm going to be aiming to make 2 videos a week and be super consistent in the process. And yeah, unless you have any other questions or anything you need from myself to kind of get some value out of it and learn how you can crack organic, I'll see you in the next video.